Welcome to episode 244 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I am your host, Dave Ginsburg, and I can't believe this. I have three amazing people here this week. And let's start off with the organizer of Mac Stock Expo, Mr. Mike Potter. He is here. Great to see you, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Great to see all of you. Thanks, Dave. This is exciting. I'm so glad to be back on your show again.
Yeah, absolutely. I am as well. And Mr. Mac voices himself, Chuck Joyner. He's back. Thanks for being here, Chuck. How you doing?
Hey, it's always great, David. And, with this panel, how could you refuse?
Oh, yeah, we can't. And including the fact that Jeff Gamet is here this week, we really appreciate it. And how you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing all right. And I feel extra special that even though you have Mike and Chuck on, you still let me come on.
That's right. Yes, I always do, and I always will. So, very glad you're here. So we got quite a few things to talk about this week. Some news stories have popped in for the notes for this week. A couple topics. Beta iOS 16.4 beta 2 dropped actually yesterday as we record. And got a bit of a security topic of themes this week. There's been some news stories about the theft of iPhones and password managers, all that fun stuff. So we're going to have a really good conversation this week. So, but let's just jump right into the news for this week. And I'll start off with this is a sports story, but I think this is kind of an interesting thing. Apple could be the new home for the Pac-12 football streaming after it passed on the NFL. Apple had been investing a lot in sports recently. Of course, they gave up on NFL Sunday Ticket. That went to YouTube. But they also have the MLS, the soccer for the United States. But it's looking like they potentially might partner with a college football division, which is the Pac-12, which out in the West Coast. They've been in discussion with them for a number of the schools recently, and it's all coming through whether or not ESPN or Amazon Prime or Fox. They're kind of lukewarm about it. But I bring this up only because I think it's interesting to see how Apple is really jumping headfirst and really wanted to get into the sports world. I've been talking about this for a number of weeks. Jeff, what do you think? I think this is something that Apple is going to continue to evolve with, and their content is just going to keep expanding.
Well, first, thank you for dropping in a line about what Pac-12 is, because I had literally no idea.
That's why I did it.
Thank you. And all right, so while like I've said many times, while I'm not a spectator sports person, I think this is still really good, and having spectator sports packages is what's the right word? It's a sign of legitimacy for Apple's streaming network. So yeah, they need stuff like this, even if it's not the NFL, which I did know what that one was. They need to have stuff like this.
Good. Yes, I agree. Chuck, I just think Apple's doing the smart thing here, trying to get into this type of business, and they just keep expanding.
Yeah, when I saw this, and I did see this, so let me start out by saying, as much as Jeff doesn't care about sports, I care less about baseball than Jeff does. So I'm into seriously negative numbers. But when Apple took over the MLB thing, I know one of the controversies was the announcers. And so when I saw this for the Pac-12, I thought, this might even be a better thing than diving right into the NFL.
Right.
By being able to get their feet wet a little bit in college football, figure out how they're going to handle the production and the announcers, and then go from there. So I agree with you on the legitimacy part, but I also think they definitely want to appeal to a crowd, an audience that is not currently being pulled into Apple TV. So if this works out, I think this is a great way for them to get into this particular sport.
Yeah, college football is very, very popular. That's for sure. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Well, when it comes to American football, I don't have a whole heck of a lot of thoughts, but I was super excited to hear when MLS was coming to Apple TV Plus when they made that announcement last fall.
Yep.
And of course, I signed up for it. And while I haven't sat and absorbed every single game that I could, because there's way too many on.
Right.
The few games that I have watched, they seem to be doing it right. They're doing a great job of it. A little bit of streaming glitchiness from time to time, I assume, has something to do with the live issues I don't have with live streaming on Hulu and some of the other providers. But overall, really good presentation of the games. And I haven't done anything with the MLB. In fact, I forgot that they had MLB until Chuck reminded me a moment ago. But the one thing that Apple is doing that no other service we ever subscribed to with MLS has ever done is include every single game. When we subscribe to the DirecTV MLS package, they would black out the Chicago games. Right. We're in freaking Chicago. I want to watch the Fire play, and we couldn't watch the team play on the service we're paying $100 a year for. Now we can watch them play. Although, we have interest in other teams too, Austin and Columbus and Chicago and what have you. Right. But we can finally watch the home team. That's amazing. And that's something that you just didn't get otherwise. So I'm pretty happy about that. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, I agree. Next story here. AI-powered Bing search has come to Microsoft Edge, Skype, and Bing the iOS apps. Microsoft this week had just announced the rollout of Bing, Skype, and Edge for the iPhone and the iPad, all of which will have the chat-based AI-powered search capabilities that the Microsoft unveiled earlier this month. The redesigned Bing app is much more overhauled with a new chat experience. Tapping Bing icon at the bottom of the app will open up a chat session so you can do your chatbot questions. So interesting to see that they went and expanded this right into the iOS-based app. So we've been talking about this on the show here for a few episodes now with ChatGPT and the Chat AI. I just finally got access to the Bing search because you had to be on a waiting list, and I think there's been some people waiting quite a while before they finally opened it up. So all of a sudden, the other day I went and checked it again. Like, oh, I have access to this. So this is interesting. So, Mike, have you explored anything with ChatGPT or the AI like this? This has been quite a popular topic the last couple weeks.
No, I think the exciting news here is that people are using Bing.
That too.
Mike, this is why I love you.
Yes.
No, I have not really done a whole heck of a lot with it, to be honest. The idea of AI, I've not played with it. So I'm just completely riffing off the top of my head here. No, but the whole idea of AI powered search doesn't really seem that different to me than the way search worked already.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we've played with it. So, Chuck, we talked about this. What were your extended thoughts on these apps?
Dave, it's funny that you're bringing this up because this afternoon I sat through an hour-long presentation by actually an insurance company talking about ChatGPT and what it could mean for the industry.
No kidding.
And it was very interesting. I guess the upside is that it could facilitate a lot of text oriented things like proposals and even cold call letters and and emails and those kind of things. The downside is don't trust it too much.
Yeah.
And they were showing some examples they were showing both some really, really good examples. They also showed some really scary examples that would completely destroy your credibility.
Yes.
And so I just wonder about Microsoft moving as fast as they are to bake this in to so many things as to what it may do to their credibility. And it's no secret that I'm not a Microsoft fan, but putting that aside, it feels like this is a technology that's about half to 3/4 baked, and it at the center of it, it's really not done yet. It's still gooey in the middle, and I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Yeah, it is still a little half baked. As I started trying it, because I haven't had much time with it on Bing, I was using ChatGPT quite a bit. Jeff, are these apps you think you'd be using them? Would you try them?
I've been playing around with ChatGPT because, it's important for me to understand what these technologies can do and what they're capable of. When I look at what Microsoft is doing, ChatGPT is part of Bing. Okay, so we have a search engine that can't find you much of anything, and an AI chat technology that will very confidently give you wrong information. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is mansplaining in an app. So there's that. But aside from that, I think Microsoft is moving too fast with this because OpenAI has been very, very clear about how ChatGPT is more like a technology preview sort of phase right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say it's learning. It's getting a larger database all the time to work with, which has the potential to improve the results that it can give you. However, it is not at a place where I think the average user can take advantage of this and have quality results. It's far too easy right now to just give it very general bits of information, and it won't be able to give you the data you actually need. Now, Chuck, where I see this as something that could be really useful for your industry isn't so much about creating documents, things like that. It's having this technology do things that, to a degree, it already is for you, which is look at all of the data that you're collecting, and then find the patterns and relationships that humans can't find, or it would take too long for humans to find. That's where technology like this is really useful right now.
Yeah, no, agree.
If it works.
It works.
And that's the problem.
Well, and the thing is, the technology, the AI machine learning technology that can do that, it's already there. When you try and make it Star Trek common, just normal speech, that's where this starts to fall down because it's still it's not even alpha. This is a preview, giving us a taste of what sort of things might come down the road.
I will share one example that they used, that they ask ChatGPT to give them, what was it? It was a cake recipe. And ChatGPT spit out a very, very good sounding recipe, except for the fact that it didn't provide any measurements.
But there's that.
It was also asked to provide information about Mars, and it detailed how many humans are living there, how long the colonies have been there, went on and on with all this information. What it did was it collected information about Mars from an Expanse fan webpage. So it was just a webpage that was detailing, like a wiki, detailing information from the Expanse.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The AI ChatGPT is really good at stealing content like that at this point.
So that's what it's doing. It's harvesting it from other websites.
It's effectively what it's doing, and it doesn't care if it's out there in under a Creative Commons license or if it's copyrighted content. It finds it, it borrows it, and says, "Now it's mine, and I give it to you freely." But from what I've seen of it, from what I've seen of it, this is a really useful tool to provide thought starters. It's not really meant to provide answers so much as it is to provide little snippets of information that you can use to then jumping off points. And yes. I think it's so far proven to be really good at that. But if you try to take what it gives you and use that as some sort of final result that you then present in a public way, I think you're making a large mistake.
Yep.
I agree.
Good to see some people in the chat here on youtube.com/intouchwithios. Ben's in there. He said the Adjuster GPT always denies the claim. And We kind of like Ben. So, and great to see Paul in the chat as well. So come check us out where we're live. As he mentioned, we had to record this a day early, so I have a scheduling conflict for our normal Thursday, but it's okay. We have an amazing panel. Glad to be here. Next story I wanted to talk about is Sonos. Sonos is coming out with an Era 100 and an Era 300 HomePod competitor. It's coming actually this month. We just started March. My God, it's March 1st here as we record. The new Sonos Era 100 and Sonos Era 300 smart speakers will launch this year to compete with Apple's HomePod and the AirPlay 2 in spatial audio. They did tease it in early February, and then reportedly both speakers will be available at the end of March, and they will support Bluetooth and USB-C line-in audio for streaming over Wi-Fi. Both include Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.0, and support for AirPlay 2. And they're going to sell in a separate line-in adapter for USB-C audio and a combo adapter for plug-in over Ethernet. So they're really going all in with this guy, it's interesting to see how they're going to handle things with the different music services. But I like the fact it's going to be a smart compatibility, and because HomePod sure doesn't do that, and Sonos is known to come up with their good products. Chuck, what do you think of this? I think this is something interesting what Sonos is doing here.
David, as far as I'm concerned, there are three basic factors if you're going to buy one of these speakers. The first one is going to be, how does it sound? Right. The second one is going to be, what's the feature set? And the third is, at least for us and for most of the audience here, how well is it going to fit into the ecosystem, the Apple ecosystem that we all live in? And so I don't think we're going to have those questions until it comes out. Sonos has a great reputation. I've got a number of Sonos speakers. They sound great. Sometimes their integration into the system as an audio source is reasonably decent. Integration in as a place or a device, a microphone to talk into, for the smart functions, not so much. So I'm like not sure. Everybody wants to say it's a HomePod competitor, but until it fits all three of those, and can match it, or at least match up against it, I just feel like I'm not so sure. As a speaker, I'm sure it'll be fantastic. The rest of it, I'm watchfully waiting. Oh, and price, of course. Let's not forget the price. Yeah,
the pricing is a bit steep. I think they're estimating $450 for the top end, maybe $250 for the low end. Mike, do you have smart speakers? Do you saw this something that interests you?
The speakers I have are decidedly dumb.
Okay.
I don't have any smart speakers. I would add one point to Chuck's list though, and that is ease of use. And you did hint at that, Chuck, but I want to be more overt about it. The few times I've helped clients with their Sonos systems, I did not find them particularly easy to set up and easy to keep going. Yeah. They tended to have issues over time. And so I just hope that this is, something that's a little bit easier to set up. Yes, integrates well with the ecosystem, and that may have a lot to do with the ease of setup. But it didn't work particularly well. We got it going,
sure,
and then I said, "Have a good night," and I left. But then they continued to have problems as time went on from time to time. So it didn't impress me. So I have not really cast much of a glance at Sonos throughout the years because of that. But hey, if they can step it up with this new lineup, fantastic.
Yeah, I hope so.
Fantastic. I missed, Dave. Did you say what smart assistant it's going to work with? Is it A-Lady or?
Actually, because I have the Sonos Move speaker that does both A-Lady and the Google
G-Man.
Google Man. It doesn't do Siri, and then Ben in the chat says, no Siri, no speaker for me. And no, I agree so it's gonna be interesting to see. They haven't really highlighted the set just yet. You can only have one or the other. So when you set it through the Sonos app, and the Sonos app actually has improved, as I've had this speaker for about 3 years now.
That's good.
And it has improved since then, because it was always challenge to get things installed and all that stuff. Jeff, you're in the HomePod ecosystem. We always enjoy hearing your woes and tales of with HomePods. But is this something that looks interesting to you?
I think it does look interesting, and which voice assistant it works with is actually less of a ranking factor for me for the different wireless or full home speaker options that are out there, which I'm finding to be very interesting, because I assume that by this point in the game, if it wasn't like Ben said, if it was an S lady, then it wouldn't be for me. And what I'm finding is, I don't care. Does it have the sound quality? Is it reliable? Will I have to deal with latency between speakers and rooms? And this is actually looking kind of cool. I mean, with the multiple input options that this has, it goes beyond what Apple is offering. Mm-hmm. And whether or not it has HomeKit support, I don't care. Excuse me, because realistically, I don't think it should be the deciding factor whether or not your whole speaker system can support HomeKit, because all you need is one HomePod Mini that you may or may not even use for anything. Mm-hmm. Other than as a bridge, like wait till they're on sale for $79 at Costco, pick one up, set it up, put it on mute in a closet, and now it's a $79 HomeKit bridge, right, and you're set. So anyhow, what excites me about this is that it has a lot of functionality, and it comes at price points that mean that Apple, if they want to compete in this space, they need to pay attention to what Sonos is doing.
I agree. A couple more stories here. Apple continues to go up and down with their trade-in values on select iPhones. Apple did increase the trade-in values for both select iPhones, iPads, and Macs. Then I got an article here in the show notes from Mac Rumors that lists the pricing. The iPhone 13 Pro Max is now up to $600, which for a year-old phone, that's still pretty good. Go all the way down to the iPhone 7. They're giving $40 for an iPhone 7 or $60 for a 7 Plus. So the pricing looks decent for the trade-ins. So they're really doing some good things here. And even Macs, the MacBook Pro, up to $730. That's a little low. I mean, I think as far as pricing goes. But we all know that when I've traded in stuff to Apple many times, and it's the convenience factor of wanting to. When I traded in my last Intel-based MacBook Pro, I got about $1,100 for it. So I thought it was pretty fair, considering I paid quite a bit more when it was new. So, but what do you think, Mike? Is this? Have you traded anything to Apple? Are you or at all? How do you usually do it?
You hold on. Seen my shelves?
I know you hold on to everything. That's right.
Full of junk. No, I don't trade anything in. I don't trade anything in. I think Apple may be feeling a little pressure from some of the other trade-in outfits that are offering a bit more for used gear, and rightly so. I mean, OWC bought an outfit that did nothing but purchase old hardware and sell old hardware, and now OWC owns it, and that's part of their business. Yeah. So I encourage anyone who's looking at trading in to look at some of these more reputable third-party trade-in outfits and see if you can't do better than that $40.
Yep. Any thoughts on this, Jeff?
I think a lot of the credit that Apple's getting for raising up trade-in prices, they don't deserve, because Apple doesn't actually manage this process.
Right.
This is third-party companies. So my guess is that what's happening behind the scenes is Apple is saying, we want a better deal, so we're more competitive. Can you do that? and the one company says, it's a little tight, and another company says, yeah, and so then Apple's with that company.
Yep. Any thoughts on this, Chuck?
I agree with what both Mike and Jeff just said. There was one other factor, though, and this is with the business hat on, and you may not like it, but that's okay. I think it's interesting that now, after the last wave of new Macs and everything came out, that we're seeing the prices go back up, because it felt like not that long ago, and I didn't go point for point, but the prices went down. So did Apple figure, hey, we're going to have a lot of people that are going to want new machines. We're going to drop our trade-in values because they're going to want to trade these in anyway and put the money directly against the new machine. And if they do it with us, it does it pretty quickly and it's very easy as opposed to working with the third party. Now, after this much time, Apple's popping it back up a little bit, saying we could use a few more refurbs. And so, we're going to pull things back in. That said, I don't know exactly what the contracts between Apple and their third-party vendors say. I don't know if Apple has the right to direct what they can and can't charge for a trade-in iPhone, Mac, iPad, whatever. So I almost see this somewhere as a cross between supply and demand and some kind of incentive or convenience. All those factors seem to come together in my mind as to why they may have gone down and are now going back up. Yeah,
get people to make it convenient for their customers. I think that you hit it right on there. So, last story here is Apple is now charging more for out of warranty battery replacements on iPhones, iPads, and Macs. They're going to be more expensive starting as of March 1st, as we record today. We talked about this, the plan was coming, so it's here now. So example, an iPhone 13 model will now cost you $89, up $20 from the previous repair costs. And that's applicable from the iPhone 10 through the iPhone 13. And with Apple charging $69 for repairs for iPhone 8s and earlier. Out of warranty battery replacements for iPhone 14 models will remain at $99. That's what they introduced when the iPhone 14 came out. iPads are going to be up about $20, including the 5th generation iPad 12.9-inch iPad Pro models, as well as all the other models. I don't have to go through all these. That's the way it is. Even Macs, the Mac battery replacements have increased from by $30 to $50. So, in fact, I know Chuck shared his experience when he had a MacBook Air that you had sent to them, and they replaced the battery for you. So the price, I think you got it in before the price increased. So kudos to you on that one. Chuck, what do you think? I mean, I think this is something that is inevitable. I mean, they got to keep the costs in check here.
I don't see it as a bad thing because look, the prices of everything are going up. Right. Not labor, parts, equipment, everything. But I also look at this and think, because I had this happen recently with a friend who gave me an iPhone 8, and it would stay functional for about a minute and a half if you didn't have it plugged in. The battery had just gone down that far. Yeah. Put a new battery in it, and it's like, it's not like a new phone, with all the capabilities, but it's absolutely a terrific phone now, or terrific device to use as a secondary camera or something of that nature. So, putting that battery in is like almost giving the phone a new lease on life, and pretty good price, for a new lease on life for anything
compared to buying a new one or a slightly used one.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jeff?
If it does everything you want it to do, that's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
Yeah. I'm bummed that the price is going up.
And you've been talking about replacing that battery in that trusty iPad of yours for years too.
Oh my God!
If I seem to remember, I won't mention any names of what were you talking about in the past. But yeah, that iPad's still waiting to get its battery replaced.
I know, and okay, it's so ridiculous because Apple's thing is you have to have the capacity below 80% of original charge capacity. And I've been hovering at like 83% forever on this thing. And the last time I'm in, I'm like, come on, people. Yep. Just help me, throw me a bone here. So anyhow, it's I'm going to end up having to pay more to get the battery replaced to my iPad now, and it sucks. But here's the other side of it. While I'm frustrated about the price going up, when Apple does a battery replacement, say like in an iPad, excuse me, it's not a battery replacement. They give you a different iPad.
Yeah.
So the cost of giving you a replacement device is I'm sure playing into this. Yeah. So when they finally say, "Hooray, you've managed to kill your battery enough so that it's beyond usable," as opposed to it's just not usable. No, I'm not bitter about this. The consolation will be when I hand them $150 or whatever it costs now. They're going to hand me a refurb iPad.
Yeah. Which is why the refurb prices are going up. Yeah. So thank you, Jeff, for all of us who are trading in iPads. Yeah,
thanks.
And we're getting more money. It's because of you. Thank you.
Just doing my part to keep the economy flowing.
Any thoughts on this, Mike?
Look, I don't mind if someone has to raise prices. I don't have a problem with that. I would like Apple to do something that they're not often willing to do, and that's provide a little transparency. What is the reasoning for this? Is it cost of materials? Is it cost of recycling? Is it the cost of labor? Is it all of them? Is it something else? Is it the cost of refurb equipment? And by the way, I'm not a huge fan of bringing my phone into Apple and having them hand me a different phone because I don't know what other problems I'm inheriting with that refurbished phone.
Well, I think with phones, they've replaced the battery. It's with iPads to replace the whole thing.
Yeah. So then that brings up my other point. Let's make it a little bit easier to replace the battery, Apple. I would like to see that. And speaking of make it easier to replace, iFixit was very vocal today about saying, guess what?
Yeah.
Our prices are not going up. So if you don't mind, cracking open your own device, and sometimes crack is the appropriate term.
Yes, it is.
If you don't, especially the iPads are the worst. I have replaced batteries in iPads. They are absolutely the worst. I do not encourage anyone to do it.
Nope.
iPhone batteries, cool. Macs, cool. But iPads are just awful to replace batteries in. So make it a little bit easier, Apple. I'd like that to come into the play.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the topics for this week. iOS 16.4 Beta 2 has come out, and and there are some changes. One of the cool things is actually it added in Apple Books the page turning animation is back. Apple did tweak the Apple Books to eliminate that previous animation, but now it's back in 16.4, so you can actually play with the animation. It is seeing the code in Apple Music for classical music. There's still been speculation when the classical music channel is going to come out because they did buy that classical music company, but it's still just code that people are looking. Other notable things. Apple Pay is not going to be in South Korea. Apple Care device coverage, which is really great now. It actually under the settings, general and about, where the Apple has a coverage section to list your device and if it's covered by Apple Care or not. There'll be an icon next to it, and it shows connected peripherals like the Apple Watch and AirPods. And numerous other things that they've added. It's ongoing. I've got it rocking on this iPhone XR that I use as a camera. And did you get yours installed yet on your iPad yet, Jeff?
I did, and that's as far as I got. My iPad booted up after installing it, and I haven't had a chance to play with it.
Okay.
I will say that moving stuff around so that it's easier to see what your coverage is and what peripherals are connected is smart and something that should have been there a long time ago.
Yep.
The page curl coming back. Thank God.
Yeah, that's so important.
Oh my God. Okay. So here's the deal. I don't care about the page curl, but I appreciate that some people do. Why I'm happy it's coming back is because I've had to listen to Brian Chaffin rant about the loss of the page curl on Context Machine.
Looks like you have a topic for this week.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was important. So see, we know. A couple other things of note here. Apple Watch OS 9.4 is out. Nothing to report. TV OS 16.4 is out. Nothing to report. I did notably, I won't go into it, but the beta is also hints that the HomePod launch in Israel will actually support Siri in Hebrew, which is kind of interesting, speaking in Hebrew. They've expanded that. This actually happened today as we record this. Apple's released the Rapid Security Response update for beta. So that was in macOS Ventura, as well as iOS 16.4 and iPadOS 16.4. So you'll probably see that, Jeff, when you next time you check it. I just did it on this phone, and it did do this. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, the Rapid Response update is designed to provide bug fixes without the need of a full update. So it goes through like this latest one is only like 29 megabytes. So it's installed pretty quick, and it just gives you the prompt you want to install. You click install, and then it reboots, and then the security response was added in there. So it gives Apple that flexibility. So I'm looking. I think that this was a smart thing that they did to add that. So definitely interesting things are going on here. So that's beta, and I want to move on to some interesting topics about security that's been out in the internet this week. Notably, the Wall Street Journal had a pretty interesting article as well as video. Joanna Stern always has some entertaining things that she does with this stuff, but this was kind of scary, honestly. We discuss the fact that how to protect yourself and your iPhone from thieves, and really what the bottom line of this whole story is the fact that that she actually interviewed a woman that actually had her iPhone stolen from her while she was in a bar, and she was just having a good old time. And apparently, the guy was scouting her out and watching her put in her passcode when she was inadvertently doing it. And he stole the phone, and within a matter of 3 minutes after she realized that the phone was stolen, and going to her friend's iPhone to go and sign into change the password and to do the Find My to find the phone, she was completely locked out of her iCloud account. And that was permanent because, of course, once you have the passcode, you have access to bank account information, you have access to everything there is on the phone because it's automatic. So at 24 hours, she had $10,000 taken out of her bank accounts. And she had to deal with that, as well as she's lost 15 years worth of backup of her iCloud because her account's locked out, and Apple will not, reset her account because that's their policy. So, lesson learned on that. The fact is, you got to be very careful with your passcode. And Apple's response to this was, they think it's a little bit of a rare thing that's going to happen, is extreme, but we take security seriously. You know how Apple's responses are, their public relations, and it's something that you just got to be careful with. And I shared this article with my family members because I know that they have a very really ridiculously simplex passcodes. I said, girls, it's time to change this. So as soon as I sent it, guess what? They changed it. So just, I think anything you can learn from this story is the fact that you need to make sure that you're using a complex enough passcode, whether it's at the very least 6 digits. What even doing alphanumeric might be even a better option to keep things secure. So it's something that it's scary. I mean that this kind of stuff happens, but you just got to be careful when it comes to this, and don't trust the passcode. I mean, the Face ID works great, but you're going to be in trouble. And like I said, many of these folks that reached out to the Wall Street Journal, they are in trouble. So I want to know your thoughts, Chuck. What do you think of this?
It's a damnable situation because we are depending more and more on these devices. And let's face it, passcodes are inconvenient. The longer ones are better, and the longer it gets, the less convenient it is.
Right.
So, it just really comes down to, I guess, how paranoid are you and how careful can you be about where you sign into your phone, and do you cover the keypad up? or are you should you be worried about somebody snatching it out of your hands literally while you're using it, and therefore would have it unlocked? That almost turns into my bigger concern. So
right.
One thing I personally do is I never set up Apple Pay on anything except my phone. I know that iPad OS, and it seems like everything wants you to set it up on your device, but on my phone and on my watch, and that's it. Those are the only two places that's accessible. I do, for cases like this, and of course we see some of these get a lot of publicity.
Right.
I do wish that Apple would offer an option, a service to go in and through proper authentication, and I mean some annoying authentication, and with a healthy fee, because I hate to see. I just don't think it's really right to have anybody lose 15 years of stuff,
photos,
and including photos. Mm-hmm. But I also think if your passcode is 1234, and there's no way for Apple ever to know whether it was or wasn't, so just put a hefty fee on it and say, okay, this is going to cost you, it's going to cost you $1,000, and hey, if it happened to me, I'd pay $1,000 to get the photos back.
Yeah. I mean, just like, when a good example is like if a drive fails, so you didn't back it up, bring it to Drive Savers. What are they going to charge you? It could be $2,000 and $3,000 to get that recovered.
Yeah. And so, I that's one thing I'd like to see Apple do. And not as a profit center, but just as a deterrent to having people, come in and just say, well, I screwed up and I forgot my passcode and I want you to unlock it. You're not going to do that too often for $1,000 or $1,500 at a pop.
But even add something like authentication with a driver's license, or with a passport or something to prove that it's you, and be able to at least instead of just saying no, that's our policy and that's the end of it. And sorry, I'm surprised because of course this is getting Apple a lot of publicity that this lady lost her all those photos. It's important to at least give the customer some options. But to prove themselves, prove in a secure way. It's not like you're trying to hack into this, and make exception to the rule in some cases. But they don't budge. What do you? Go ahead.
I've just one thing I'll add. I've had credit card situations where I had to go and get a notarized statement from Notary Republic, and therefore I had to take ID into them to establish that I'm who I say I am.
Right.
And I don't think that would be out of bounds. Again, inconvenient, absolutely. But if you're going to be talking about unlocking someone's account, and you want to make sure you're unlocking it for the right person.
Exactly. Mike, what do you think?
Finally, a use for Real ID.
There you go.
No, I agree. I agree with you, Chuck. It's completely within Apple's power to authenticate someone, verify they are the owner of that account, and get them back into their data. Mm-hmm. They apparently just don't want to. They could. They're Apple, for goodness sakes. They have billions of dollars to set up a system within which they can verify someone is who they say they are. And goodness sakes, this person can prove that their phone was stolen. Now, I am confused by one thing, though. Mm-hmm. I get this. This is kind of a riff on the old ATM scams, where someone would watch someone input their PIN and then steal their card and get into their bank account and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a riff on that. I guess thieves aren't 100% original when they come up with these ideas. But the thing that confuses me is that every time I've gone into my phone or someone else's phone to turn off Find My or to turn off some of the other features, it does not just accept a PIN. Right. It requires a password. It requires the Apple ID password.
But they've already reset the password, so they kept it based on the PIN.
But you can't reset the password based on the PIN. I've never been able to reset the password based on the PIN before. It always requires some other information. Can you do that now? Is that something that Apple does? They allow you to reset based on the PIN?
No, that it obviously happened. I mean,
that's what the article said, but I don't believe that. I've run into needing,
I didn't think you could do that either.
Yeah, you know what?
I mean,
it's been a while since I've reset my passcode.
And me too.
Yeah.
So
somehow
that confused me.
That I agree with you with that. It is
to put everything to put everything related to someone's online life behind a pin.
But the other thing I can think of is maybe that the person was not smart enough and they put an actual password, the password to their account in a note or something. In the phone itself. Yeah. I think that could be the possibility right there. With that, I agree with you. But the other thing too is when they do this, they also can lock them out of all their other devices. So not only does this lady get locked out of her iPhone, she's locked out of her iPad and her Mac. Because it's that you can go and remotely turn those off as well. So it definitely was kind of a scary moment that this happened. And then of course, because everything's stored with the PIN and the passwords changed, now you have access to all the bank accounts and Venmo and PayPal and any of those other services that are that use the passcode. It's very. They use Face ID. Yeah, but then the person can go in and change the Face ID too. Yeah, once they get
I suppose so. But then, face.
So it's just I think the bottom line of the story is just the fact that you just be smart. Don't let people watch your environment where you are. Don't be putting your PIN in public and people can see it. And I think that's probably going to be a first thing of what I could say about this. And use a password manager because unfortunately, most people aren't using password managers. At the very least, use the passwords app and keychain access on an iPhone to try that. But the problem is everything that's in the passwords in the iPhone, the PIN will go in there, and that's the other thing. They can go in and check those passwords in the passwords section of settings in the keychain. Yeah. So I think all of us here use one password, and I think I like to tell everybody how important it is to have a password manager like this, to really keep everything secure, because we know 1Password has done a very good job of keeping passwords secure. You have to have that master password in order to use it and utilize it. And I mean, you can use both if you want to. I do, because I have some passwords in the keychain access and some in 1Password, so I kind of bounce around between the two. But people are just so resistant. There are many people out there who are very resistant to using a password manager.
Incredibly resistant.
Yeah. I also included an article today, and as we've talked about in the past, about LastPass. And there's again another article today saying that that an employee, that there's a developer for LastPass, got his computer hacked and now has code for LastPass because he wasn't protecting things, and LastPass allowed that to happen.
Well, he was protecting things. However, it was his personal computer.
It was personal,
and he was being targeted specifically, and the attackers used a flaw in music player software.
Yep,
and were able to get into his computer that way.
That darn Winamp.
Darn
Winamp.
Oh, iTunes for Windows flailed again.
Yeah. Early smoke the llamas.
Right.
Beep.
So
I loved Winamp.
The llamas, excuse me. The llamas. That's right.
The llamas.
Yes.
Yep.
So to me, part of the problem here is that apparently there's a company policy that allowed a senior engineer to have very sensitive company information on a personal device.
Oops.
That should never be allowed. And of any company to be aware of that, you'd think LastPass would, because their whole thing is security. Or so they say. I mean, at this point, if you're using LastPass, it better be because you just haven't finished downloading 1Password yet.
Right. So please use a password manager. And then another article comes out here, and that a top U.S. cybersecurity official calls on Microsoft and Twitter to match Apple's commitment to user security. This was released a couple days ago as we record here, and Apple was once again praised for the work they do protecting customer data. Carnegie Mellon, speaking of Carnegie Mellon University today, a cybersecurity infrastructure security agent director of the United States, Jen Easterly, praised Apple's focus on user privacy and security while urging companies like Microsoft and Twitter to do more. And it goes on to talk about all this stuff, but I don't think Twitter is going to be jumping on the bandwagon anytime soon with our friend leading the pack on that company. But Microsoft, they really need to get better too. I mean, I think they're up there, but no, I think Apple does a very good job of keeping things secure. And what we talked about previous is just a kind of a rare occurrence.
I'm with you on Twitter.
Yeah.
The likelihood of Twitter doing anything to improve user experience or safety or security in any way, no. Microsoft, however, I think Microsoft has had a strong commitment to user security.
Yeah.
They just have the problem, the albatross that's slung around their neck of all of this legacy stuff that they still have to support. And I think it makes it very difficult for them to be able to do what Apple is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's more Microsoft can do, but I'm not going to fault them in the same way that I would Twitter.
Oh no, Microsoft has been doing a great job lately with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Windows 11 has made some improvements. I mean, I'm going to be rolling that out soon here at work, so it's definitely.
Well, we'll talk again when Windows 12 comes out.
Yeah, we'll see. Right?
Yeah,
but this is. First of all, I love the story. I love the story that finally somebody's giving Apple credit, where sort of in keeping with the last story we just talked about. Using a Mac and using iPhones have become less convenient because of all the security, but Apple has put that front and center, and they try to explain to you why they've done it, and somebody finally is actually listening and giving them credit for it. But we also, and look, everybody on this panel has done it at one time or another, that Apple discontinues support for a device, an older device, because it won't stand up to the security requirements of the current time. Microsoft has not drawn that line in the sand. Maybe because they can't, because they don't control the hardware and the software. But Apple has done that, and it's again, see the earlier story, of what can happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Are we at a stage where two-factor authentication should become the norm for logging into our devices?
I think it's important.
No,
but I don't think it's a norm.
Should be.
I mean, it's certainly not a norm, but I mean, should it be?
I would kind of agree with that. I mean, it does give an
Mike says
added
no.
layer.
I don't know. That it adds a whole nother layer of complexity to the equation. What devices? And how are you going to get that to work? Your iPhone and Mac, sure, that would work.
I'm just the idea,
iPhone
guys.
Windows and your iPad. Linux,
I mean, it works great for me. Whenever time I sign into my Microsoft account, I have Microsoft Authenticator, and anytime it says, "Oh, you signed in," go to your Authenticator app to prove it. And what number do you see?
That does work great. Microsoft Authenticator works great. Yep.
And unfortunately, not all. I have not used Microsoft Authenticator. Can't talk.
Yeah.
But there are some authentication apps out there that don't work the way they should, or are not easy to deal with. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? That means you try to find ways around it. You try to, and that's exactly what you don't want. So anything that anybody implements better be as convenient as possible, balancing it out with the security.
Yeah.
That's the trick right there.
Yeah.
If you make the barrier too difficult, then people are going to find a way to subvert that because they don't want to go through the hassle.
No, I agree. So this was a great discussion. A lot of stuff with security happening, and it's good to everybody be aware of what's going on in the world with this stuff. And I agree with you, Chuck. I think this article praising Apple's security is good, but again, I made the comment in our show notes is, it's good, even though this social engineering issue did occur. I think this is just kind of a sad thing to happen to this person, and I hope not to hear more horror stories of this. But this could be you heard this, and be careful with your PIN and with your passcode, please.
I'm going to toss an idea out there.
Yep.
What if Apple gave us a feature that we could turn on that would allow us to use FaceTime and a passcode to unlock our devices?
Yeah, there's an option.
FaceTime for face recognition?
Face ID.
I'm sorry, Face ID. Face ID
okay.
and a
You're right.
passcode.
I knew what you meant. I should have corrected.
I understood you, Jeff.
So it would be sort of like two-factor authentication, because you have something you have your face and something the passcode, and used in conjunction. Now you're in the device.
Yep.
You would have to make it optional.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
no, I think Jeff's onto something. I don't disagree with the concept, Jeff, of two-factor authentication to get into the devices, but it should be optional, not mandatory.
I agree. It should be optional.
Yeah, and provided for folks who, look, you have to gauge the level of danger to which any one device you own could fall into the hands of a bad actor. So I don't rate my Mac over on the desk to my right as being in great danger of being stolen. And if it is stolen, well, I've got other problems, because that means they've been in my home.
Mm-hmm.
So there's other issues there. My phone is probably the device. Actually, the watch is probably the device that's at most risk of being stolen. I'll lose it somewhere. I almost lost it. The band ripped. And you're like, oh, gosh, glad I caught that, because if I hadn't caught it, who knows where it would be?
Yeah, watch it be gone.
And then that is protected by what? A PIN code. That's it.
Right.
That's all that the watch is protected by. So cool. That's probably the most risk of falling into someone else's hands. Then my phone, then my laptop. But I don't rate my desktops as being particularly in danger. Mm-hmm. However, that if I had the option to turn on two-factor authentication for the devices that were most at risk, I might accept it for the watch. I might accept it for the phone. I feel as if the Mac is fairly secure, protected by the passcode, Touch ID, things like that. I feel like it's fairly secure, and that if it did get stolen, I would have the opportunity. Well, then we have the story we were just talking about. But I feel like I would have the opportunity to get into Find My and erase it remotely before something happened. It's not protected by a PIN. It is protected solely by a reasonable password and Touch ID. So I feel like it's okay. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like I need two-factor for it, but I might enable it because it is a portable device and potentially at more risk. So yeah, I think if it were an optional feature, I might implement it. I said no, but I might implement it on certain devices.
Mike, you just inspired me with that, because I hadn't thought about my Apple Watch as being one of the easiest things or higher risk things for me to lose. Mm-hmm. So while you were talking, I went and changed the default, which is simple passcode on my Apple Watch, turned that off, and I just changed the passcode on my Apple Watch. So it's not a 4-digit passcode now. So thank you.
You're keeping your watch secure. So
I'm here to serve with advice, Jeff. Will I implement it myself? I don't know. But
well, the fact that you were here, it was worth it for me to show up just for that.
Yes.
Do as I say, not as I do, right?
I admire your honesty.
That's the tech person's mantra. Do as I say, not as I do.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
A couple more quick topics here I wanted to touch on. Apple's health VP had talked about glucose monitoring on Apple Watch amid rumors of non-invasive tracking breakthrough. Apple's Vice President of Health, Subi Desai, today had spoken to an Indian publication, Business Line, and she talked about Apple's health initiatives which was interesting that they're very open about this and the insights of Apple's thoughts on glucose monitoring on the Apple Watch. That's been such a big thing with the amount of diabetics that are out there who want to have the ease of being able to measure their blood sugars, and to have these tracking sensors built into the Apple Watch. It's a real important area, but she does say, quote, that they require a lot of science behind them. And there were some rumors, of course, you got to integrate the Mark Gurman's say from Bloomberg that Apple has hit a milestone in the non-invasive blood glucose monitoring technology, and they're working on this functionality for at least a decade, and now has a proof of concept model that is viable. So I'm thinking this is definitely interesting, and she also believes that we're at the beginning of health tech, which will require the change in behavior for physicians and people. She says that Apple is focusing on the customer and as the individual, and how the company can empower an individual to be holistic about their health by providing actionable insights. So Apple's definitely laser focused in their health, and I'm really excited to see this. And this is, I'm even interested to see how this technology works, honestly. What do you think, Chuck? I mean, to be able to just have something on the watch like that and not be evasive, you get those ones like the Dexcom that attaches the little sensor into your arm is constantly monitoring your glucose levels, which is cool, but it's still a little bit evasive because it still has to stick into your arm and to be able to get the measurement of your blood into the sensor. Because you have to change them out every 14 days or whatever it is. So why not? I mean, what do you think? I think the Apple Watch we have some future here. I just hope to see it sooner than later.
I think you just said it. Sooner rather than later would be great. Yeah. I think it'll come. It's just a matter of how quickly. I mean, look, we all want Dr. McCoy's medical scanner, right?
Exactly.
The medical tricorder. And we aren't going to get that.
No.
But we now have things strapped to our wrists that can monitor our heart and our pulse, and have saved a number of lives already. I know one person personally that it appears that his Apple Watch saved his life.
Yeah.
And so I think it's great that they have this initiative going. Apple's going in this direction, and it can clearly make the watch even more valuable than it already is. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but I do sometimes get a little concerned with some of the hype that hits the press, including Mr. Gurman. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, when it gets here, it'll get here. Because, we could also get into a discussion of what all is needed. Can this be one of those things that is a medical resource, or is it going to have FDA approval? And how accurate is it going to have to be to avoid Apple being sued out of existence because somebody, relied on it and it wasn't accurate enough for that individual? So there are a lot of scientific and practical hurdles that have to be jumped before we get there.
Absolutely. Jeff, you have thoughts.
Of course I do. Chuck hit on one of the key things briefly when he said FDA. And here's the deal. Apple can do with this exactly what they've done with other health tracking technologies, which is release something and tell you this is a tool that you can use to set guidelines and for yourself. This is not a medical grade instrument, even if the technology actually can be. It's not certified to be that. And it's okay for Apple to do the same thing with this. Mm-hmm. Now, I have heard from doctors personally that have said that Apple's ECG sensor is so good that they will just take it at face value when patients come in, and then immediately get them hooked up to their machines to verify the data that came from an Apple Watch. Yeah. That's awesome. So Apple can do the same thing here. This is a really, really hard thing to do.
Very is.
So Apple getting to a point where they have a proof of concept, that's great. That doesn't mean we see an Apple non-invasive glucose monitor in an Apple Watch I'm mixing words together. Wow. Non-invasive glucose monitor in an Apple Watch this fall. No, not happening.
No, it's going to be another couple of years, I think.
Oh, yeah. A couple of years from now, we will still be talking about this, I think.
Probably.
And we will be a lot closer. But this is really hard, and it takes a long time and a lot of work. So all right, I'm going to toss it out there right now. I think that this can show up in an Apple device if it's a watch 5 years from now.
That's fair.
If it's an accessory that you just like strap on, maybe a little sooner, because then it can be a bigger device. And by bigger device, it could be an Apple Watch size device, but it just does the one thing.
Yeah, they could get into that market too.
Even if it got to be an iPhone size device, that still would be
right.
It'd still be viable for a lot of people.
Yeah, I was just thinking that what I understood from reading the articles was that they did have it down to an iPhone size device. And as you guys are talking, I'm thinking, release that. Like Jeff said, release that. That's your accessory.
Right.
People will snap that up in droves. A non-invasive device you can just kind of strap to your arm, like
a health
used
accessory
to strap their phones when they went out running.
Yeah.
If you could do that, I think people would buy it.
Yeah. It would be a independent health accessory. That'd be a different, interesting market that if Apple were to go into that.
I mean, there's no reason why Apple can't go into that.
Yeah, but they're very passionate about the health and with all of the devices that we have. So, it's
Jeff, as long as it works,
and it works,
right? As long as it works, yeah.
And that's the part we're hearing that they have a proof of concept.
Yeah.
Proofs of concepts are a long ways from actual market products.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you
that
uses
Apple's lasers, Chuck.
Freaking lasers.
It uses lasers. Everything's better with lasers.
I agree with that, but
but they're looking at, I mean, what I just talked about, the Dexcom and the Libre and all those other ones that have the disc that attaches into your arm. I mean, they're looking at that technology and saying, there's something there we could do with it and not have it as evasive as it is. For what I'm hearing, that those devices aren't too terribly bad, but the fact that if a diabetic can actually monitor their blood sugar levels that in real time without having to have a pump and carrying all other things with them and having to prick their fingers all the time, and
be amazing.
It'd be pretty amazing. And everybody, I've publicly said that I am diabetic, and I'm looking into this too. I would want to have something like this to make it easier for me to manage. And there's 40 million people out there that have diabetes, so it's a big market. So Apple has a good reason, as not only for the health purposes of it, but there's just so many people that would benefit from this too.
40 million in the U.S.
In the U.S. alone, right? Yeah,
you're right.
Exactly. So, one last topic I wanted to hit on really quick here is we talked about this on Mac Voices, but I wanted to hit this anyway because Jeff missed it, and this is such a interesting topic is the fact that Microsoft wants to bring iMessage to Windows with the iPhone Link app. Microsoft's upcoming phone link app is going to allow Apple users to access iMessage on Windows as well as the notifications. They are releasing a preview of the version, which is going to be in the Windows Insider program, which is more or less Microsoft's beta program, and let pre-release builds of this on Windows, and let the app will let the iPhone users connect their smartphone and PC to send and receive messages via the iMessage system. But we go back to the same thing again. Green bubble versus blue bubble. It's still not going to allow group messages. It's still not going to allow you to send photos and messages or participate in group chats. They won't be able to see the entire message history and conversations. The app will only display in messages or send or receive through the phone link. It is going to work via Bluetooth, which is going to be interesting to see how that works. And while the phone link won't support Photos, Microsoft does support iCloud Photos in Windows, the Windows 11 Photos app, as well as they are going to be bringing native apps for Apple Music and the Apple TV on Windows 11. As I mentioned, there's going to be beta versions of those applications on Windows. It's in the Windows Store now in a beta format. So, Jeff, iMessage. I know. I mean, I think what's happening here is Apple wants to extend the market into Microsoft's ecosystem and their world. There's still tons of Windows users out there should have the capability of doing this. I mean, it's been just like the debate with Google and Android. I mean, but is this something that is going to ever get solved? I mean, I'm glad to see that it's happening, but they need to be able to have a full experience. And Apple should be able to allow them to do it without, like Tim Cook said when someone asked him, if you remember, well, are you ever going to bring this to Android? He says, no, you need to go buy an iPhone.
Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, when you look at who Apple sees as a real competitor in the space where iMessage is a thing, that would be Android. Okay,
right,
not Microsoft. So, doing a partnership with Microsoft to extend iMessage outside of the Apple ecosystem, that makes more sense. Having the limitations that we're seeing right now, okay, well, keep in mind what, from what I understand, what Microsoft is doing is making a bridge, and so the messages that you're sending are going like out of iMessage into Microsoft's phone thing, and then out of that and into Windows. And so over time, we will probably see that expand out to include more features and give you more of what you get in iMessage. And of course, that will take some cooperation with Apple. Right. And from Microsoft's perspective, Satya Nadella, he gets it.
He does.
And what he gets is that Steve Ballmer didn't get it. And it's about how can Microsoft be a part of everything. It's not how do we make everyone use Windows. And we're seeing that over the past few years, and he's right. And he's doing it right. He's finding ways to bridge these little gaps and make Microsoft fit in with everything. So good on them. And I can see where over time this could fit in with Microsoft business tools in different ways. You know how you can do the thing where a company has their iMessage support thing. And so you can have that temporary conversation right in the Messages app. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, why not build that so that it becomes a module inside Windows services? So these companies that are already using Windows for all of their support stuff, they can just fit that right into what they're already using and not have to add in extra tools to make that happen.
That makes total sense.
I'm just spitballing here.
No, it makes total sense. What do you think, Mike?
Is this actually a partnership between Microsoft and Apple? I don't think it is it? Right? This is just Microsoft building a bridge to allow folks to do this?
There has to be some sort of, if nothing else, a nod from Apple, like, okay.
Yeah, because they're doing it for Apple Music because they got to get rid of iTunes. That Apple doesn't want to develop iTunes anymore.
Yeah, but Apple TV too, putting Apple Music, that's to Apple's advantage. Putting Apple Music on Windows, that's to Apple's advantage. They had iTunes on Windows for a reason. It's to capture those Windows users as iPhone users.
Right.
There's a reason to have music on there. I don't know that there's necessarily a reason to have iMessage on it. If I want to send a message to someone who's using Android or Windows or whatever, I'll just send SMS. I don't care what color the bubbles are.
Yeah,
I'm sending a message to them. They're getting the message. I'm getting a message back. Who cares? Why does it have to be?
It's all the MMS, all the group conversations. That's what people have been pushing. So I know pushing so hard.
The irony here is the solution to this has already been out there, and it's the new messaging protocol that Google and a lot of other companies have been
pushing for. Yeah,
been pushing
and
for.
Apple doesn't want any
I
part
thought there
of.
was a third party that provided their service already, like for several years. Isn't there another entity you can sign up for, you can subscribe to, and you can get iMessage on Windows? I thought there was. I was trying to do a quick search here and I can't find it right now.
There probably is.
Because Google search is filled with stories about this new Microsoft effort. But somewhere out there is a company that has provided this service and you could subscribe to it. And I'm trying for the life of me to remember what it was called.
I'm not
and then there are other workarounds too. I mean, look, I'll stick a Mac Mini in the closet and just do a remote desktop into it and run iMessage on it. And there you go. I got iMessage on Windows. Boom, done.
Brilliant.
It doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Take my old iPhone 8 and remote into that. And I don't know. It's not that big of a deal to me to have iMessage on Windows. If I care about iMessage that much, wouldn't I have an iPhone on my desk anyway?
Yeah.
I don't know. Cool on Microsoft for doing it. Yay. I agree with you. Satch is doing some fantastic stuff. I love their push into the open source world. Yeah. I think that's absolutely wonderful. I love their integration of Linux into Windows. I think that's great. iMessage, I don't know. It doesn't seem that important to me.
Chuck, you got thoughts. I know that.
I'm sort of with Mike that there's only one reason I want Apple to do any of this, and that is to improve the experience for Apple users. Mm-hmm. I don't think they have an obligation to improve it for anybody else. And also, like Mike, and the only way it would improve the experience for Apple users would be to, quiet some of the people down who are criticizing iMessage for not playing nicer with Windows and with Android. Mm-hmm. All that said, though, I want to take this conversation back to our discussion and my comments about ChatGPT in the Microsoft apps. This is it sounds like a half-baked attempt to put something in. It doesn't sound like it's fully baked, it's fully ready. David, when you started the story out, it lists a whole lot of compromises that, it won't be able to do this and won't be able to do that.
Exactly.
Well, so you're going to depend on this? I mean, this is your way to show that, is Apple not giving you the keys to their kingdom? I hope they're not. But if they're not, and you haven't found a way around it, then I just see this as being potentially a bigger frustration for everybody involved. Apple will take the blame for it, and Microsoft won't, even though it's Microsoft's half-baked implementation.
Yep.
So I don't see a winner here.
You are 100% correct, Chuck. If you tell people you're going to get iMessage on Windows and they do not get the iMessage on Windows experience, it's not going to be Microsoft's fault. Everyone's going to blame Apple and say, well, you didn't play nice. You didn't let Microsoft implement the full thing. And, look, it should be Apple implementing this if Apple wants it on Windows.
Yeah,
it's their protocol.
That they implemented iTunes. They're going to implement Apple Music. They're going to implement Apple TV. I mean, they have to, because it's their bit. That's their baby.
Music and Apple TV. That's win-win for Apple.
Absolutely.
iMessage on Windows. I don't see how they win.
I'm agreeing with you on that. Like it's just it's something, like I said, we all here don't really care as much about the group chats and all the limitations. Green bubble versus blue bubble.
I don't know that many people, Dave.
Yeah.
So since I'm just throwing out crazy ideas left and right tonight,
that's okay.
What if Apple's playing a long tail game here, and they're doing what they've done many times before, where they have let another company foot the bill for testing the waters for them? What if Apple is seriously looking at competing with products like Slack?
Well,
and if you're going to do that, you have to be cross-platform, and that's when Messages becomes a full cross-platform tool.
That's a good analogy. I like that. That is interesting. Possible. That is possible.
But to start with Windows,
that's where I would start.
You think, Jeff? I mean, in the world that's going increasingly mobile, you would start with Windows?
Yeah, because okay, so Apple has all the money in the world. And then after that, Microsoft has pretty much all the money in the world too. Practically speaking, we're talking about amounts of money where we just can't imagine what it really is.
Yeah.
Microsoft also owns the business space. And if you want to have a tool that competes directly with Slack, you need to go into the business space. So why not partner with a company that's already there, even if you're not like really partnering with them today, and start working stuff out. And then when the time comes to say, and by the way, look at all this stuff we can do. And everyone says, oh my God, they just Sherlocked Slack. Well, there you go.
Yeah. I don't see that happening, but okay.
So instead of Steve Jobs bringing Bill Gates on stage, we're going to have Tim Cook bring Satya Nadella on stage. Is that what you're saying? Is that what we're
I didn't realize I was saying that, but damn, yeah, I guess I kind of just did.
It's out there.
I struggle with this.
Like I said, I'm just throwing out crazy ideas right now.
Yeah, it's out there, but all right, guys, this was some amazing conversations tonight. This was a great show. I really appreciate it. I think there were some really good topics to hit on, and I really thank you for the great stuff that we talked about this week. But let's go ahead and wrap things up. We went long, but it was a really good conversation. So that's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We'd really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so when you're notified when we're live streaming. That show is usually on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We had to change it a day early this week in my schedule. But it's on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/intouchwithios, which I really thank all the people in the chat room tonight that participated. Appreciate you being here. And you also can watch and listen to the past shows. And you can also visit In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, where many of the topics we discussed are flipped into the magazine. The link is in our show notes. You can subscribe to the show in your favorite podcatcher, including Pocket Casts, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, and many others. But better yet, go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg. You can find me on Mastodon at DaveG65 at mastodon.cloud, or I'm also on Twitter at DaveG65. Mike Potter, I know Mac Stock is coming pretty soon here. You can let everybody know at least what the dates are. You did send out the newsletter, and also tell us where they can find you.
Well, thanks, Dave. You can find me at formaceyesonly.com. We are putting out the podcast now the 2nd and 4th Friday every month. You'll find us live on YouTube, youtube.com/FMEOTV. And then, of course, you can subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts or Memer or whatever your favorite podcatching client might be. And yes, MacStock is back. Our 7th MacStock, I can't say 7th annual anymore. Our 7th MacStock is back this summer, July 22nd and 23rd. And you can find out information on that at macstockconferenceandexpo.com. Thanks, Dave.
No problem. We'll be talking a lot more about that in the future here. So, Jeff Gamet, thanks for making it tonight. We appreciate it. And where can people find you?
It's always great to be here. Mike, I'm thinking you can still say annual. You just have to say annual-ish.
Annual-ish.
Yeah. Okay, where can people find me? The good one, Mastodon and Instagram. That's where I'm doing most of my stuff right now. I'm Jay Gamet on all the socials. And then let's see, shows. Most Tuesdays on Chuck's Mac Voices Live, and then here on Thursdays, except today, Wednesdays. So most Thursdays on In Touch with iOS. Thank you for having me. Then Thursdays on The Big Show, Fridays on The Mac Show, also on The Context Machine with Brian Chaffin. I get around.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Last and certainly not least, Chuck Joyner, thank you as always for being here. Where can people find you?
Hey, thank you for having me, Dave. MacVoices.com is where you get to see everything I do and everybody I talk to. We do Mac Voices Live Tuesday nights, as I think Jeff just said. at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. I am starting a GoFundMe page to get Mike Potter to join a Mac Voices Live one. so one of these days it will happen.
It will.
It has happened.
It has happened. And it will happen again. I'm confident.
It's like, it's like that rare gazelle you spot in the forest. You just have to be patient, and eventually I will appear.
Mike just compared himself to a gazelle. I gotta think about that.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. And anyway,
Graceful
you can find
gazelle.
A graceful gazelle. Okay.
Now I sound
Mike,
like a Linux distro.
I mean, but it's fair. That's a fair description.
Yeah.
Mike will be dancing after the show to see just how graceful he is. Yeah, and I'm on the socials as at Chuck Joyner or at Mac Voices. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks,
this is way too much fun.
This was a blast. And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. It was a heck of a fun time to do with this great panel. And we'll talk to you next time.